Hello and welcome to Adelux, and I'm Xavier, your host. I recently picked up this Lutron RA2 Select starter kit, and I thought it'd be great if we could do a basic setup of that Lutron wireless lighting control system together. This tutorial is not limited to the RA2 Select starter kit, and the step that will follow can be used by anyone setting up a RA2 Select system for the very first time, or for anyone that would like to see how easy it is to set one up. So without further ado, let's do it! This Lutron RA2 Select starter kit contains everything you need to start using that system. It comes with 2 inline dimmers, a RA2 Select main repeater, 2 Pico remotes and 1 Pico Scene keypad, as well as a few other bits. If you want to have the full details of what the kit contains, we've done an unboxing video and you can find the link on the comment section below or by clicking on the card above. To illustrate all the programming steps, we've set up a small demo, and we are going to use 2 table lamps that will represent 2 separate lighting circuits. So let's wire the Lutron RA2 Select inline dimmers. But first, please note that this has to be completed by a certified electrician and in accordance with your local regulations. So I will start with switching off the breaker for the lighting circuit where I need to install the inline dimmer on. Then I get the main feed coming in and wire it as shown on the installation instructions that are coming with the unit. Next, I wire the cable that goes out to my light fitting if I've got a single one, like a single pendant or a table lamp like in our demo, or to the first one if I have multiple fittings that belong to the same lighting circuit, like a circuit made of multiple downlighters for example. Once completed, my wiring should look like this. Then I'll screw the strain relief that is also supplied with the unit, place and screw the top cover. Then I'll turn my breaker back on, and at that point I can test my wiring by pressing on the on-off button on my inline dimmer. And I noticed then the light turns straight on and then dim to off. So I guess my wiring is correct, which is great. And to finish, I've also wired the second inline dimmer to my other table lamp, and the wiring test is okay on that one too. Next, let's set up the RA2 Select main repeater. To do so, we're going to use the Lutron RA2 Select app and just follow along. So first, I'll install the Lutron RA2 Select app from the Apple Store. And this is because I'm using an iPhone and an iPad, but this app is also available from the Play Store. Then I'll make sure that my phone is connected to the home Wi-Fi network. This is the network to which my RA2 Select main repeater will be ultimately connected to. So let's launch the app. Click on Agree and Continue. Then I select the option of my choice and click on Continue, and on the following screen I click on Get Started. The app is now reminding me to make sure that all Lutron devices are installed, which I've done already as I previously wired the inline dimmers on our little demo. But what they probably mean by this is that because it is a wireless system, it is probably a good thing to have all your equipment, including the Picos, at their final position. So during the system setup, you can confirm that all the equipment is within the Lutron wireless coverage. At least this is what I would do. Here we're doing a quick demo, so it is a little different, but in real life I will have all the equipment at their final position at this stage. So then I'll press next. On the next screen I'll have to create a Lutron account. This will allow for the app to communicate with my RA2 Select main repeater using cloud services. So first I select the country where this RA2 Select system is installed, and in my case I'll select the United Kingdom. Then I'll have to enter my email address and create a password. Then I click on Create Account. On the next screen, the app asks me to wire the RA2 Select main repeater to the home network Wi-Fi router. The main repeater is the central element of the Lutron RA2 Select system. You only need one main repeater for your home. it will allow for setup, control and monitoring via the Lutron RA2 Select app. So let's power the unit from the power supply provided. Then let's connect the Ethernet cable also provided at the back of the repeater on one end and at the back of my wireless router on the other, or if it is the case, to my Ethernet switch of my home network. I click Next and I see that the app is now trying to discover my Lutron system through that little animation. Once found, the app asks to press on the button at the back of the repeater called the Add button, which I do now. Next, the app requests my time zone and location, as this will help to schedule lights and shades based on time and location for functions like geofencing and time clock programming. So I click on Allow, and the app is now showing my time zone and my home or project location. Then I click Next to save those settings to my RA2 Select system. Then the app is now asking to set up my home, which will allow for third-party integration like Siri. This is not needed to complete this basic setup, and we will review that on a separate tutorial. So for the moment, I will just click on Not Now at the bottom of the screen. Then the app is getting ready to add devices and will take me automatically to the Add Device screen. From there, I have access to all Lutron and non-Lutron equipment that can be added to the RA2 Select system. I have the inline dimmer and inline switch module, the Picos, the Lutron shades, Lutron occupancy sensors, and the third-party thermostats and audio equipment, etc. So let's start with our inline dimmers by clicking on their icon. Now, the app actually shows that there is two ways to do it. The first one is by letting the system looking for the inline dimmers. Effectively, you may have all your dimmers already wired and fitted into the ceiling, so this method can be very useful. I really like this. The other way is to add the dimmers by pressing on the physical button on the dimmer itself. So since we have two inline dimmers, I'll add the first one with the Find Inline Dimmer Switch method, and I will add the second one by pressing on its button. So let's start with the first one. The app search and find my two inline dimmers, and once it had finished searching, it gives me a list of all the inline dimmers or switch modules that it has found. From there, we can test flash the inline dimmers from those buttons on the side. This will be very helpful to correctly ID our devices. Once I'm happy with the device I'm currently flashing, I click on Add. Now, the app is asking to choose the room where the light is located. And as you can see, there is a long list of predefined rooms, and I can also add a room with a specific name that is not on the list if I want to. But here, let's select Living Room as an example and click on Next. On the next screen, the app asks to choose the type of light this dimmer controls. Here again, I have a list of light types such as ceiling light, cove lights, spotlights, pendant, etc. So if you select one of those, the app will automatically name the light, assign it to the room with the correct icon, and you'll be good to go. But in my case, I'm using a table lamp and there is none in the list, so I select Others, and there I'll find Other option and I will select Decorative Light, as the description seems to match my light type, and I hope this will give me a clear representation of my physical install on my Lutron RA2 Select app. Then I click Next. On there, the app asks me to give that light a name of my choice, so I'm gonna type in White Table Lamp and select the appropriate table lamp icon and click Next. The lamp has now been added and quickly flashes. So now, let's add my second inline dimmer and click on Add Another Device button. Select the inline dimmer or inline switch icon. As we said earlier, for this one, we're going to press on a button on the inline dimmer itself. And when I click at the bottom part of the screen, the app gives us a good illustration of what needs to be done. So let's follow the instructions and press on the dimmer button. As you can see, the LED on the dimmer is currently flashing to let us know that the dimmer is in assignment or programming mode. And now press on that button until the LED flashes quickly. Once it has been added, the app goes automatically to the next screen. so I can choose where this light is located, and I'm going to choose living room again and click next. I'll also select decorative light, click next, give it a name like black table lamp and select the table lamp icon and click on next. The table lamp quickly flashes to let us know that this assignment is now complete. Now that I'm done with my inline dimmer, I'll select the I'm done device button and the app shows a quick finishing setup animation. Now I'm back onto the main screen, and on the devices tab I can see my 2 inline dimmers I've just added. From there I can quickly test and see how it looks like when I operate my lights from my Lutron RA2 Select app. So let's select the black table lamp. At the top I have the confirmation on the current light level, and in this case is on. Using the icons on the side, I can turn the light off and on. Or I can use the slider to adjust the light level to my liking. And I note that the light level at the top follows in real time, which is great. Let me also check the white table lamp. I turn it off, then on, and I can see also that it responds very well to the slider. Great, that's all good. Now, let's add my picos. Since I have 2 picos and 2 lighting circuits, where here, each circuit is represented by 1 table lamp controlled via its own inline dimmer, ultimately, what I try to do is to have each pico to control its own table lamp. So let's program that and see what we discover during this process. Same thing here, let's click on the settings icon and then add devices, and this time I'll select Pico Remote. Now the app indicates that I need to press and hold the bottom button for 10 seconds until the LED blinks quickly, which I do now. Here again, once the app's found the Pico, it moves automatically to the next screen, where I'll have to assign that Pico to the room is in. So I'll select living room as the light I want to control is also in the living room, and I click next. Now the app asks what type of device does that Pico will control. So I select lights and I click next, and my Pico has now been added. Now let's add the other one. Same thing, click on the add another device button, select Pico Remote, press 10 seconds on the bottom button of that second Pico, select living room here again, and then click next. Now, because there is another Pico already in that room, the app asks to confirm the name of that second one. So for the moment, I'm going to leave it as Pico number 2 and click next. This Pico will also control the light in my living room. So I select light and then click next. And I'm done with adding my second Pico. That was very easy. So let me exit that screen by clicking on the I'm done button. And now I'm back to my main screen where my 2 Picos have now been added to my living room. Now let's test my Picos. And the first thing I've noticed is that both Picos operate both lamps. Okay, this is not what I want yet, but I like to pause here for a second as I found this basic setup quite useful. Maybe not in this current setup, but imagine that you have a room with a certain number of lighting circuits and 2 doors to access it. That could be a living room, a corridor, or a staircase. By default, the system has managed and pre-programmed for us the 2-way switching or the 2-way dimming by just following the basic instructions. So I can have a Pico at the bottom of the stairs from where I can turn the lights on, and another one at the top of the stairs from where I can turn the light off or even dim them. I didn't do any specific programming for that. By just following the basic instruction, the Lutron RA2 Select system has automatically pre-programmed that for us. This is great and convenient and allows for quick system programming for whoever programmed that RA2 Select system, either be the homeowner or a contractor. By default, any Pico set to operate light in a room will operate all the light, which means all the inline dimmer in that room. That is very good. Now, let's find out how I can program my Picos to control their own table lamp respectively, as I originally stated. I'll start with my Pico number 1 and select Edit Device. From there, I select Devices, and from the following screen, I can see which device that Pico is currently controlling, and I found my black and white table lamps. So, as I want that Pico number 1 to only control the white table lamp, I deselect the black one and click back. From there, I will also change the name of that Pico number 1 to Pico White Table Lamp and click Save. Back on the main screen, I can see first that the system is updating the programming. See the small animation on the top of the screen. And I also see that the name for my Pico has now been updated. So now, let me test it. As we can see, that Pico now controls only the white table lamp. Now, let's do the same thing for Pico number 2 to control the black table lamp only. So I click on Pico number 2, then Edit Device. In Device, I deselect the white table lamp to only keep the black one, change the name to Pico Black Table Lamp, click Save, and then test it once the system has finished updating. And now I have my second Pico that only controls the black table lamp. Adjusting my Pico programming was quick and easy. Now, the last piece of equipment that I want to program as part of my Lutron RA2Select starter kit is my Pico Scene keypad. This Pico controller is more to call scenes that include multiple lighting circuits at different lighting level based on the activity that takes place in the room. My Pico Scene keypad is pre-engraved in a way that it can be used in any type of room really. The top button could be a all-on type of scene. The next one with the 2 glasses cheering could be an entertainment type of scene. The next one with the chair could be a relax or a reading scene. And the last one to switch everything off. Perfect! Those scenes could also include Lutron blind position and audio preset if I had the relevant equipment, so using that type of keypad in any type of application is quite convenient. So let's add my Pico Scene keypad. Same thing here, let's go to Settings, Add Device, and then select Pico Remote. This time I'm going to select the picture that matches my Pico Scene keypad, and in this case I select 4B. Then press on the button for 10 seconds as indicated. Okay, so the app goes automatically onto the next screen, where I'll choose the room where this Pico is located, and I will select living room like the rest of my equipment. Click Next, and I'm done. My living room Pico Scene keypad has now been added, so I click the I'm done button, and the app is taking me back to the main screen where I can find my Pico keypad. So let's test it. I press on the top button and both of my table lamps that are part of the living room go to full on. Then, when I click on the second button, my lights are dimming a little. Then, on the third one, here again, my lights are dimming a bit further, which will work fine for relaxing, for example. And then, on the last one, both of my table lamps are turning off. So, similar to when I first programmed my Picos earlier, here, the great thing again is that all the lights that were on the same room have been automatically assigned to that Pico Scene keypad. This is quick and easy programming for me, as I can have a fully functioning lighting control system straight away without any heavy programming. This is very good. Now, let's see how I can customize that Pico Scene keypad a little bit. So I select Edit Device. From here, I can change the name of that Pico and assign it to another room if I need to. Then, on the button section, I can access each scene to customize it. So, if I select the relax scene, for example, on the next screen, I can select all the elements that I can configure on that scene, or I can only select the lighting element, or only the Lutron motorized blinds and curtains. But in my setup today, I've got none, so let me go back to the all section. Here, I can see that both of my table lamps have been preset to 20% in that relax scene, which is great, but now I'd like to customize it a little bit. So I'm going to lower my black table lamp to 5% using its slider, and then set my white table lamp to off using the off button. Then click Save to go back to Edit Device screen and save again. Now, to test this new relax scene, first I'll select my bright scene so both lamps go to full on first, then select my relax scene and see that both of my table lamps are going to their new lighting levels, which is great. Voila, there you have it. We've just completed the basic setup of my Lutron RA2 Select starter kit. We've wired the inline dimmers to 2 separate lighting circuits. We've downloaded the Lutron RA2 Select app and followed the instruction for the initial setup. We've wired the RA2 Select main repeater, and we quickly program our dimmers and picos within the app. And hopefully that has shown how easy it was to complete a basic setup. On the next tutorial, we will review some other advanced settings available within the Lutron RA2 Select system. So please make sure to like and subscribe so you can be updated when the next video is released. Thank you very much and talk to you again on the next tutorial.